Parkview is embarked on this program called DNA Insights. So you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that brings to the population, the people of this region.
DNA Insights is, I think, a wonderful opportunity for Parkview, for our community, and really, again, for the whole health system. So DNA Insights is a clinical research study that is enrolling people and offering them the opportunity to have their genome, or a substantial part of their genome, sequenced, so completely characterized, so that we can then return information to them about their risks for developing three important genetic syndromes, right? One of them is hereditary breast and ovarian cancer syndrome. One of them is something called Lynch syndrome, which is also a cancer predisposition syndrome, as you know. And then the third is familial hypercholesterolemia. The research study has selected those for some important reasons, but really because many people who carry these genes aren't aware of their risks. And by knowing risk, you can actually do some things to either prevent disease altogether, or to catch disease at an earlier point in time to try to mitigate risk.
So other than these three syndromes, where do you see this genetic information being the most useful in most people's lives here in this community?
So there are a few areas from providing clinical health care to people where having genetic information could potentially be helpful. So one is there is a growing body of information supporting the importance of genetics in choosing the right medication and the right dose of medication for each person, so that medications can be used more safely and effectively, right? So, for example, as you are well aware, right, there are certain chemotherapy drugs that we know that there are genes that help us predict when patients may have a severe, even life-threatening side effect. And by having that information ahead of time, we can actually either choose different medications or modify dosing to make sure that the medication and the dose that we're using is as safe as possible.
I agree. I mean, that was sort of on my top of the list of where this would be helpful to people right now, every day sort of thing, is to identify whether they'll respond to medications or if they need to have dose adjustments to respond better to medication. So I think that's great. So if you consider all of the genes that are involved with either hereditary breast and ovarian cancer or Lynch syndrome or familial hypercholesterolemia, that's about 10 genes or so maybe.
Yeah.
And out of our 20,000 genes, so what do we do with the rest of the 19,990 genes?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So the information, the genome, so for example, your genome, right, if we were to sequence, is stored securely. And it's stored for future potential use, right? To do discovery studies or to do research studies to understand the genome a little better. And it's also safe to potentially benefit you. And so we're collaborating with the company that's doing the sequencing to be able to offer clinical diagnostic tests using that information that's already been generated. So one would be in your healthcare and the other would be in the context of doing future research studies.
Well, and the beauty of this, though, is that your genome, your genes, don't change with time. The information we have now will still be useful to me 20 years from now. And so the idea here is that that information will be there and we can then query that information in the future should new developments or new discoveries be found that may impact our health. So if people want to become involved and participate in this, how do they go about doing that?
For people who are interested in participating in the study, they can learn more and go directly to the consent, which is online, at parkview.com/DNA Insights. The process is very simple. People can go through the whole consenting process, and from there get an appointment to have their blood drawn.
Is this at any cost to them?
The study is offered at no cost.
That's tremendous. What an opportunity.